and welcome to another episode of the Influential Nonprofit. I'm your host, Mary Anders, as always, and I work with nonprofit leaders to grow their influence so they are able to ask for and receive all they want, need, and deserve. And I'm today here with Susan Kahan, and she is an expert in something I think everybody wants more of, which is individual and major gifts. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much, Marianne. It's great to be here with you today.
All right. So my first question, as typical of this podcast, and I love this question. So tell me something you're really proud of that you don't get to brag about a lot.
Something that I'm really proud of is I started my own company. Mm-hmm. And, I remember when I first started thinking about it, which was about 2 years ago this month. We're recording in January 2023, if I can correctly name the year. But I had this idea and I thought, this is crazy. And then I started to really put together, wait, maybe this isn't crazy. Maybe I could do this. And 2 years later, here we are. And I feel really good about what I've built, what I'm building, and I've done it all on my own. And I think that, sometimes a crazy idea can turn into something really special, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah. All right. That's a cool thing because I am proud of that too. And I started in October of 2018. So like I'm coming into my fifth, into my fifth year. Yes. And it's a wild ride.
It is.
And it's also, it's exhilarating, it's the yin and yang. It's exhilarating and it's scary and it's all the things. And, part of it, like what I do is I work with people on, being in alignment, and good leaders go first. Right. And so I can't sit back and be comfortable like, oh, I got it. And not, and want everybody else to up level or upgrade. You know what I'm saying? So because I run this, I'm constantly pushing myself, right? Yes. And so I can be in alignment around that.
Well, and I think it's the same, for founders of nonprofits, is that you start something and you have this idea and you're not really sure how it's going to go, but with a lot of perseverance, like I'll even show, I don't know I think this is being recorded, but persevere and never give up. It's probably being flipped, but I have this on my computer monitor every day. Don't give up, keep going. Right. And because every day is not going to be a great day, but if you keep at it and you keep believing in yourself, I think we are all possible of a lot. Right. And so I very, and I think again, business founders, nonprofit founders of organizations, I think we don't often take a step back and say, look what I've done. And right? I think it's worth being really proud of.
I do too. And you're right. Like that whole thing of like, the only way this won't work is if you stop. Right. Like, and that's a great thing that we're telling the folks that you work with, every day may not be a great day. And it's so that, it's all working, and I think that mindset is really important. I'm going to share this anecdote really quickly because I think it's a great one. So when we talk about not being like proud or stepping back and sort of celebrating our accomplishments, I had a call with this woman and she showed me this whiteboard that she had in her office. And she said, every day I leave and I look at all the things that I haven't done on that board. And I sit in my hot tub and I like drink a beer and I think about all the stuff I have to do. And I said, well, where's the list of things that you've done? She goes, look, my list is over here. Right. I said, what if we flipped it? What if every day at the end of the day, you wrote on that board all the things that you had done, and then went home and sat in your hot tub and celebrated everything that you accomplished? Because that list will be waiting for you tomorrow.
I love that. And I think, sometimes maybe this is just me, but there are times where I'm like, okay, I want to get these 5 things done today on my to-do list. These are my 5 things. And I don't always, unfortunately, get to all 5 on my to-do list. And I'm like, oh, I didn't get anything done. But in reality, maybe I did 2 other things that weren't on my list, but were bigger priorities, and you got those done. Or maybe you moved forward or you did something else. And I think sometimes we're so specifically task oriented. Yes. And again, as a leader, you need to be also thinking strategically and bigger. And it's important not to just think, did I check everything off my to-do list? but I love that idea of like looking at what you've done and what you've accomplished and having that be a prominent thing.
So, right, we value ourselves by what we produce, not who we are.
Yes.
And, you know, and so, and if, even if you don't get the 5 and don't do anything else, that's okay too. Right.
That's right. That's right.
Y'all, whatever it is whatever it is. Like today. So, I found my husband found out yesterday that his mom is really sick and he was out of town and he flew home. And I had stuff that I was going to do today, but I went and picked him up at the airport because, you know, life happens.
That's a priority.
Right. And we just reset. All right. Let's talk a little bit about major gifts. So first of all, how did you get into this field?
So I joke that no one as a little kid says, when I grow up, I want to be a fundraiser. No one says that because it's just not something people think about. Maybe they understand what a not-for-profit is when they're growing up. Maybe they don't. But as I got older and I started to figure out what I wanted, but I kind of fell into fundraising. Again, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to help people. And when I graduated college, I graduated in a different recession. And that recession, it was a really difficult job market. So I applied for a lot of jobs and I was fortunate, lucky, still humbled to be able to get this job where I actually started plan giving at a nonprofit. And I learned so much. I had an incredible mentors. And I realized I actually really like fundraising. I like working with donors. I like this way of helping an organization. I get to use my entrepreneurial mind, my persuasive communication skills, and again, that perseverant spirit to be able to accomplish a lot. So I kind of fell into it, but it's been a great journey as I've gotten to work in plan giving and major gifts.
That's awesome. I didn't even know when I came out of school, which was a long time before you, because I graduated college in 88. So there was nothing like I didn't even know this profession existed, you know? And and I remember somebody saying to me, like, what are you going to do with all this like social justice stuff and advertising? Because I was an advertising major. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I didn't even really understand the question. And then I'm like, oh, here's what I'm going to do with it.
Yes.
Okay. So let's just talk about, I want to ask a question because this is what I think most people think fundraising is. You meet someone and you ask them for money, right?
Yes.
And that's what that's what people boil down fundraising.
Yes.
So can you meet someone and ask them for money? Is that okay?
The first time when you meet them?
Yeah.
So you can. It depends. As all great answers, it depends. So I think the key thing when it comes to fundraising is relationship building, because the goal should never be you get one gift. It should never be you get one gift from this person and then you move on and you go to the next donor. That would be, think of a company. If a company only had sales from each customer one time, that would be a terrible sales strategy. You want to have those repeat customers, loyal customers. That's why so many companies have loyalty programs and rewards for repeat buying and purchase. It's the same thing when it comes to fundraising. So if you meet with a donor, can you make an ask? Maybe. Sometimes the donor will even bring it up where they'll say something like, so what do you really want? I've had that many times where a donor says, okay, so let's get down to basics and say, what do you really want out of this meeting? What are you asking me for? And if that, then of course it's an invitation to talk about making a donation. But if you're just meeting with someone and you're, let's say, brand new to the organization or they're brand new to the organization, it can often be strategic to have that be a cultivation meeting where you're just getting to know them, they're getting to know you, and you're building that long-term relationship.
I call those connection conversations.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? Right. And it's exploratory, right?
Exactly.
Is there something here? The one thing that you said that I think is really interesting is when they're saying, hey, let's get down to business. One of the things that I feel like and what I work with people on is sometimes people are really good at relationship building and the connection, but they have a hard time getting down to business, right?
Yes.
It's sort of like, because they feel like once they do that, they're going to break rapport, right?
Yes.
Right? Like, they're going to cause consternation. Do you find that? Is that something you help people with?
I do help people with, so I would say there's two scenarios. Usually you're meeting with if a fundraiser or executive director or board member is meeting with a donor or prospective donor, oftentimes it's over a limited period of time. It's not just we're meeting for 6 hours and the conversation can go anyway. Maybe it's a 30-minute Zoom meeting or call, maybe it's over lunch, whatever, but any donor meeting, again, whether the purpose is to make an ask, to say thank you, to cultivate them because you don't know them, maybe it's because they are disappointed about something and you need to sort of handle it and make it all better. Whatever it is, you should know how long you have of their time. So a great best practice is starting a meeting and saying, I just want to be clear, we have about 45 minutes together. Is that still okay with you? Or if we have lunch, let's say, chances are the meeting's over when you're paying the bill and you're going out the door. So it's really important that the fundraiser, the person who's responsible for the fundraising, is keeping track of time. And whether it's really having an idea of how much time you have, because every meeting should have a purpose. Again, the purpose may or may not be to make an ask, but it should have a purpose. So at a certain point, you have to be alert to say, we only have 10 minutes left. I want to make sure before we leave, we shift the conversation to, and then you do that. And you do sometimes need to say that very explicitly. Sometimes the donor will say that because they know why you're meeting with them. They know what you want. I mean, it shouldn't be a total surprise if you're asking someone for money. That
Right.
also means the meeting hasn't gone well. If they're totally surprised that, wait, why are you asking me for money right now? Like, I thought we were just meeting for coffee. So you need to be very aware of some of these things.
I love what you're saying, like put a beginning, middle, and end to it.
Yes.
And also what I'm hearing and what I coach people on is you have to show up as a leader to that conversation.
Absolutely.
And I feel like one of the biggest things that people do is they give away their power to the person with money. And so they're like, okay, well, you have the money, so you tell me, and
No.
but people, I think what I know, people want to know that you have a process, that you're coming as a leader. So when you step in and say, hey, we have, I know we only have 30 minutes. So let's get to it. They are going to appreciate that because you're valuing their time and honoring the agreement.
Absolutely.
And also you're showing up as a leader to the conversation.
Absolutely. Right? So I really started being a fundraiser and working on the major gift side and meeting with donors. I was probably around 24, 25. And I also looked pretty young. And so I would be meeting with people who were 2 times, 3 times my age sometimes. And I immediately had to, and oftentimes they had a lot more wealth than I did as well. So there were a lot of power imbalances, usually men that I was meeting with. And again, there are all those power imbalances. I had to step into that meeting and I had to own it. And that's what you have to do too, because chances are, first of all, you're asking for the meeting. You should have a goal for the meeting. Like I said, you should be showing that you prepared for the meeting. I think that's another way of showing your leadership, is that you have, you know what you want to say. And the other thing I think when it comes to leadership is you're also listening, because while you of course want to probably get something across, whether again, that's a new project, a thank you, an ask for more support, whatever it is, you still need to listen to what they have to say. You should be asking questions. And listening is also, I think, a critical leadership skill.
Well, you're talking my word. I know, because I say this all the time. It's like people will buy, quote unquote, to the level they feel seen and heard. And it's not about you pitching your organization or saying how great you are. It's about listening and connecting with that person, because once they feel that you get them, they'll be open to what you have to say. Like,
Absolutely.
I can't, and I do this in how I run my business, how I enroll people into my programs. I can't meet your needs until I know what they are. So there's no sense in talking about what I offer, what I do, unless I know what your needs are. And it's like, once I know what your needs are, I can say, hey, is this a fit or not?
Right.
The other thing is that I teach that I think you will align with is about like releasing the outcome. So I'm showing up in a sense of like, I have no agenda. There's something I'd love to have happen, and I know I'm okay whatever happens, right?
Mhm.
Like because I don't get to say who or when. That's the universe's job. But there's a principle that I work with people on, which is releasing the outcome. So I can see you for who you are, not who I want you to be, right? I don't
That's
have
right.
to like try to pretend because I've released the outcome. And I feel like releasing the outcome is really important to keeping these conversations from going awry, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because if you are trying to push somebody, I think that is a recipe for somebody getting uncomfortable and maybe this
Yes.
conversation going south, which is exactly what people are afraid of and why they don't want to have it.
Yes. The thing that I think we all need to remember, even someone who, first of all, appears or is really high net worth, high capacity, they do not have to give to your organization. It is voluntary. Unless they've made a pledge and they've signed, okay, over 5 years, I'm doing XYZ, which again, still, we
Right.
could talk about that separately. But overall, giving is voluntary. And even if they gave $100,000 last year and they've been doing that for 10 years, that does not mean that they have to give or that they should give. To me, should is like the dirtiest word because donors shouldn't do anything. They could do things that they want to do and that feel inspired to do.
Right. They're going to choose.
Choose.
They get to
Exactly.
choose. They get to choose what they want to do and where their money goes.
Exactly. So it is the fundraiser's job. It's important to plan and have a strategy of, okay, we need to raise this much money in the year. How are we going to do that? We have these potential people, this, and you sort of break it down. But you don't know for sure how much a person will give until it happens, until you ask and you make your case and you talk to them about why the need is there. But sometimes, they're going to, I once had a donor. They were giving $100,000 again for years, $100,000. And then they had some corporate challenges. They owned their own business and they had just challenges. It was not at the time when our fiscal year was closing. They're like, I'm really, really sorry. This has nothing to do with you guys. We can't make any contributions right now. And it's like, okay, like, what are you going to do? But you stay in touch with that donor and they came back. Because we didn't just see them as money bags, but we saw them as a relationship. And we knew that this was not that they didn't like us or that they didn't want to support us. It was just a timing thing. So again, remembering that these are people and, people have outside lives, and donating to your nonprofit is usually not the number one thing on their to-do list. We talked about to-do lists, the number one thing on their to-do list any day.
So I did this workshop once. This was a couple of years ago, like pre-pandemic. My whole framework of history is like pre or post. This was pre-pandemic.
Yes. Yes.
I was in DC speaking at this conference it was like all these nonprofit fundraising consultants.
Yes.
And this woman said, I had a meeting with this donor and I sat down. And he said, I don't know why I'm here because all you're going to do is ask me for money. And she froze because she was like, he took the meeting and I was going to ask him for money.
Of
and
course.
She's like, I don't know why I'm here. And it was like, he like really threw something at her. And she said, I just froze and I didn't know what to do. And of course she said, oh no, I'm not going to ask you for money, which she totally was, but she kind of backpedaled. Like, have you met with that kind of resistance, or how do you help people when you get through through something like that? Because that felt really scary.
Yes. So sometimes, I think one of the things that scares fundraisers the most is if you're dealing with major donors and you're doing major gifts, and so you're in those one-on-one meetings, is someone could say something to you that there's no way you could prepare for this type of question. And that's one of those cases. So something I might say would be, You're right. You have been an extremely generous donor to us in the past. I would love to talk to you about continuing your support to our organization. We don't have to have that conversation today. I'd love to share with you also what we have planned for the next year as an organization and hear your feedback, because as an investor and supporter of our work, we value your insight on this topic or something like that. But I think to say, yes, we do. We're an organization and we need resources. And you've been part of making that possible before, and we hope you'll do so again. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. And I think, again, you need to be authentic and honest with your donors, because donors can smell when you are saying, oh, no, I don't want to talk to you about money. It's like, well, you do. I mean, if you're not, if you didn't want to talk to, and sometimes, again, you don't have to always bring up money, but to say that, no, we don't want to ever talk to you again about continuing to support, I mean, you don't want to ruin the relationship either.
So when I heard this story, I said, for me, listening to that, it was more about something that had happened to him that I think he wanted to share.
Yes.
And I said, so, and sometimes it's hard when you're in those situations and like, you go into fight or flight and you feel your body reacting, and, because when we do that, our brain, like, our cognitively shuts down and it's hard to think of what to do.
Yes.
But I've said, wow, that's an interesting comment, since, we're here to talk about that. For me, it sounds like something happened to you, along the way. And like, let's I just want to unpack that statement a little bit.
Yes.
Because if this isn't a good time, that's fine. But I just felt like there was something there that person wanted to share. Like they had been burned or hurt or something by someone, and they were defensive because of it. I also had somebody in a workshop say, this person says, I'll never trust nonprofits. And I said to her, that is not a good prospect. You need to let that person go.
Yes.
She's like, I'm trying to show him how nonprofits are trustworthy. I said, no. I said, if you could, he may have gotten burned. Like, if you can tap into a story and figure out why he feels that way, but you're not going to convince him to trust. I said, like, I would bless and release that one right away.
Well, I think that's such a good point, in that, again, I get asked all the time, like, who are great potential major gift prospects or transformational prospects? And first of all, I would say, look inside your own donor base who's already giving. That's the first. But, you want to look at, so affinity, do they like you? If they don't care about, if you're, let's say, an animal shelter, and this person is, like, they don't hate animals, but they're maybe not really into animals, they're probably not a great prospect for you. Two is, do they have capacity? Again, if you want to make significant size asks, the person has to be able to say, yes, I can afford that, and I want to do that. But three, they also have to, like, be philanthropic. And I think that part doesn't come up. There are a lot of people with a lot of money who don't donate a lot. And that's okay. Again, that's their choice. I wish everyone were more philanthropic. Obviously, I've devoted my career and my life to this industry, but not everyone is philanthropic. And so you have to be thinking about, is this person let's say you want to ask for $25,000. If a person has never given anything above $5,000, and you can oftentimes figure that out through different research platforms, $25K is going to be a big ask for them. You may think it's not. May think they can afford it. They've got yachts, they've got multiple homes, but donating is not the same as buying things for themselves.
Right. And I think that's also, I think those are tricky too, honestly, because sometimes people will step up into something, even if it's scary, because they believe in it enough.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And I did a podcast. This was more than a year ago with his name's Corey Kupfer, and he was a major donor that I met. I know as a colleague through a program that I'm in, and he shared what it was like to be asked for an extraordinary amount of money, and what a gift it was, and how life-changing it was for him. And as soon as he said yes to that gift, his whole life switched. His business grew. Like, everything in his life changed because of that gift. So I also think it's like, it's okay to ask, because You never know. Like, and also calling people into not just philanthropy, but that higher version of themselves that's living a more
Yes.
aligned life. And I
Yes.
think that's when you're talking about philanthropy, that's the part that we don't really talk about. Are they interested? Like, what is their passion? Is this aligned with their values? You know what I'm saying? Like, and
Yes.
that is that the legacy? What legacy do they want to
Yes.
leave? What is their
Well, I think you said it, but that there's no greater way to show your values than to be philanthropic, in my opinion. I think that by putting your money where your mouth is and saying, I really care about climate change. I really care about ending homelessness. I really care about, ending cancer. Whatever, again, there are a lot of great causes. There are a lot of good organizations out there. Whatever it is, prove it that you really care about it. Obviously people have different capacities, but and a major gift can mean different things to different people, but it can be quite an honor to say, will you support us at this extraordinary level? And for someone to say, I would like to do that, like what an honor for me to do that. And I'll also say that there's this one quote that I believe is attributed to Anne Frank, but is that no one ever got poor from giving. So it's this quote about saying, this is not going to make you poor. People worry, am I going to have enough money towards the end of their life? Chances are, by donating, it's not going to make you poor. Other good things, like you said, will happen.
will come
Good
into your
things
life.
happen to good people.
So, how do you work with the clients, like how do you serve them?
Sure. So I work primarily in 3 different ways. I do consulting work where we do fundraising strategy, develop a case for support, talking points, solicitation training is part of that, making sure everyone feels comfortable and confident in what they're saying and doing, analyze the donor base. Some organizations want to focus more on major gifts, some plan giving, some capital campaigns, but all of those types of work. And then putting into place some clear and actionable business processes so that they can be effective. So that's one way of working together. A second way is through solicitation training. So these can be one time or a few time to train their staff and or their board members on how to fundraise, what it's like to practice and really get comfortable with it, because that's a big part of it. And then the third is I coach nonprofit leaders. And sometimes they just need a sounding board or someone to help keep them accountable on what they're doing and strategize on fundraising, but in a little bit more of a limited capacity. And so I work with them one-on-one for an hour at a time and help them as much as I can.
That's amazing. I think what I experienced the board members that I see, I always imagine this room of like stuffy people.
Yes.
And every board I've ever encountered has not been that at all. They've been amazing people who want to do right by the institution, who would love to learn how to do it better.
Yes. I think that they, again, fundraising, I joke, can be scary and for a lot of different reasons. There's rejection, there's questions you don't know, you're talking about money. There's just a lot of pieces to it. But it's so important. And again, I don't know of a single nonprofit, a single business, a single government, a single person who doesn't need money to operate. And so if you care about the work that your nonprofit is doing, you need money to make it happen.
Right.
And money doesn't just bear. You need money to do it.
All right. So any like final words of wisdom for nonprofit leaders and fundraisers?
The thing I will say, I'll say 2 things. One is that fundraising, as I said, can be really difficult and time consuming. So do what you can. You don't have to do everything. Start with something. Can you add one more thing on? Can you try this new stewardship plan? Can you reach out to more major donors on a regular basis? Whatever it is, try one thing and just see how that goes. And then maybe you can add on from there. And then the second thing is play up your strengths, just like, you, Marian, have strengths and I, Susan, have strengths. Organizations have strengths. And maybe that's a really strong executive director who's charismatic and out in the community. Get them out there even more. Maybe that's the board is super well connected. Use them. Or maybe, you have this incredible facility that you can bring people to and show them the work in person. Use it. Take video, take pictures, like bring people on tours. Whatever is great about your nonprofit, play that up and use that for fundraising.
Right. And it's like, that's so great because everyone has different strengths and there's a million ways to do this. Right. And it like, we can't raise money because we don't have anything to show people. What doesn't matter. Then what do you have? Right. Like
what do you
have? Mm-hmm.
Right. Think about, there are so many nonprofits out there, and chances are there are organizations that have similar missions to what you're doing. So what sets you apart? Why should someone donate to you over someone else? And play that up. Talk about that all the time.
I love it. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And my last question. So I'm in St. Louis, you're in Chicago, not that far.
That far.
But I love karaoke. And so I'm going to go. I've been to this really cool karaoke bar in Chicago. I can't remember what it was called.
It's really funny because Saturday night I was supposed to go to karaoke, but there was a wait, and so I didn't go. But literally this past Saturday I was supposed to go to karaoke.
What is the name of this place anyway? So if we were ever at karaoke together, high likely probability that'll happen. What's your go-to song?
Ooh, it's been a long time, but I'd probably do well, you're putting me on the spot. I'd probably do like Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby One More Time. Just like that classic. It'll get everyone going.
Yep.
I think that would probably be it.
Yeah. And everybody sings along.
Everybody does the choreography. I don't need to sing high or low. I have a great voice. So I'm not trying to pretend that I have a good voice. No Whitney Houston for me.
Right. Britney's pretty good for that. You can kind of settle into that range.
Yes.
All right, Susan, thank you so much. And where can people get a hold of you?
Well, thank you, Marianne, so much. Again, this was such a great conversation. The time has just flown by. My company is Sapphire Fundraising Specialists, and you can find me at my website at www.sapphirefundraisingspecialist.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Susan Kahan, and it's Kahan.
And we'll put those links in the show notes so people can reach out for you and connect with you on LinkedIn. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
All right. That is it. Another episode of The Influential Nonprofit. If you haven't yet, you can go to theinfluentialnonprofit.com and uplevel your influence starter kit. A lot of the strategies and the philosophies that I share in this podcast and in conversation with other experts are included in this. It's so many good guides. And actually, one thing I do have in there is a template that kind of walks through a conversation. So you can check that out if you want, and we'll see you next time on The Influential Nonprofit.